So let's dig into that just a little bit. So as I mentioned on the front end of this podcast, I'm going to be interviewing a woman named Lori Davidson who literally just went through this educated franchisee process with Rick, and she actually went through a few franchise coaches first before arriving upon Rick and figuring out how his process would be uniquely beneficial to her, and her and Rick worked together to line her up with a franchise opportunity that was the best fit for her. So I think that's going to be really enlightening or shed some light on some really interesting insights to folks to define the difference between a franchise coach, just a generic franchise coach, or a franchise consultant, and then what you do at the Educated Franchisee and what makes you so uniquely helpful to folks like Lori. So I guess if you don't mind, with afranchisecoach.com and with what you do at the Educated Franchisee, I guess what separates you or what makes you different from just the standard franchise consultant or franchise coach out there who may just have a couple brands in their back pocket that they show everybody or something like that. So I guess what makes you unique and what makes your afranchisecoach.com philosophy different and your Educated Franchisee philosophy different than other franchise coaches?
And I probably don't want to get too much into it because Lori, of course, is going to probably really spend a whole lot of time on that. But I'll give you a kind of a quick background. And Lori's story, by the way, is not unique, okay? Lori starts out, she wants to look at a franchise. She gets on some Internet sites, kind of bounces around a little bit, ends up finding some person somewhere that she works with for a period of time and doesn't really get anywhere with it. And then she finds a local guy who she starts to work with, and that doesn't help her either. And I asked her, I said, why isn't this getting you where you want to go? And she says, what they're doing, she says, we'll have a kind of a quick conversation at the beginning. We'll speak for a half hour, 45 minutes. And then they'll come back to me with 10 different ideas and say, what do you think you want to look at? And then you choose a few, she says, and then I'll go to look at them. She says, but then it's kind of like, good luck.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, an inappropriate way to handle the relationship. I think that this is a relationship, so what I do is I spend a lot more time up front. I will spend time going through questionnaires, consultation process, building a model. We'll spend a lot of time up front. So that the goal is not to throw mud against the wall and see what sticks, which seems to be the approach a lot of the time. The goal is to figure out what the right match is ahead of time, and then to specifically target ideas that make sense based on what the objectives are. And so in the case of Lori, what had happened is she had a bunch of things thrown at her. She found one she liked, which was a resale. She started getting into that resale, and she was getting no support at all. She would call the local coach or consultant or whoever it is that she was working with, and there really was no support in the process. And she reached out to me and said, listen, I know you're not part of this relationship, and I know you're not even going to get paid, but I need help. So I spent quite a bit of time with her, getting her set up with local people that could help her through that buying process of the existing franchise. It was kind of a resale situation. In the end, she realized it wasn't the right thing for her. And instead of throwing a bunch of companies at her, we just looked at 2 ideas. That was it. But we spent a lot of time up front, so we kind of knew each other already. We looked at 2 ideas. One of them was perfect for her. And so it was a very different way. So the goal here is to spend a lot more time up front, look at fewer ideas but better matches, which then gives you the actual future franchisee, the prospective franchisee, gives them a lot more time to dive into the details of the due diligence process. And that's really a lot of where the value lies. People think the value lies in regard to finding the franchise companies. That's probably 25% of it. I'd say the real value lies in all the stuff you do after that, the step-by-step coaching of how do you tear a franchise company apart so that should you become a franchisee, there aren't any surprises.